Hello, everybody. Eric here with another sort of random top 10 or so list of things, just so people can get to know me. This is the one that I think maybe, if you've had any respect for me, any any positive thoughts about me in any way, this one might shatter all of that. Uh, could be a little controversial here. If you didn't already think I'm an idiot, this may change your mind. Um, this is going to be 11 of my favorite comedy movies. I chose 11 because it's difficult for me to pare things down. One of these movies I do not have a physical copy of, so I'm going to try to show you a picture on my phone. And there's going to be a bunch of honorable mentions as I go through things. And I am not including horror comedy. I'm going to make that its own list. And that's because there were this list could easily just be horror comedies. Um, so it'll be hard to just pare that down to 10 on its own. So no horror comedy. I'm pretty sure there's no horror. I didn't slip any horror comedy in here. Um, so this is 11 of my favorite comedy movies, and I'll start with an honorable mention, and that is going to be it's a movie I don't have at the moment, but it's Undercover Brother. It is written by, I believe, Ridley Pearson is the writer. I should have looked all this up ahead of time. Ridley Pearson, before I keep saying his name, I should probably check that I'm talking about the right person. So I'm going on IMDb. There we go. All right. See, I'm always so well prepared. John Ridley. See, what the hell am I talking about? I had the Ridley part right. John Ridley, one of the writers of Undercover Brother. I had read one of his novels, which was a straight up thriller, private detective, crime novel, not this crazy, over the top comedy that is Undercover Brother. And it stars Eddie Griffin as Undercover Brother. It's got Denise Richards, Chris Kattan, Dave Chappelle, Neil Patrick Harris. There's all sorts of great people. And it's this modern day story, but Undercover Brother is very 70s blaxploitation, and it's about the man trying to brainwash people of color using. He's already brainwashed Lando Calrissian, not Lando Calrissian, um, not even Lando Calrissian, or is it? See, now I don't. Oh, yeah, Billy D. Williams. Ay, caramba. It's been a long day. He's already brainwashed Billy D. Williams into doing these fried chicken commercials, and the fried chicken is going to brainwash people of color. And Undercover Brother has to foil his plans. I think this movie is absolutely hilarious. Might be some problematic elements to it, but um, I've watched it many times and I laugh every time. So that's my first honorable mention is Undercover Brother. Let's jump in. This is in no particular order. I'm not ranking these. So we're going to go with a physical one. We're probably going to get a lot of glare off of these, but Johnny Dangerously, starring Michael Keaton, Joe Piscopo, Mary Lou Henner, Maureen Stapleton, and Danny DeVito. This is a spoof of old timey gangster movies. It's got a song from Weird Al Yankovic in it called "This Is the Life," so that should give you an idea of the kind of tone. This movie, Michael Keaton plays Johnny Dangerously, who ends up taking over the mob. It's incredibly goofy. It's incredibly quotable. Still quote it to this day, a phrase you're going to hear a lot in this video. Um, there's one of the mob guys doesn't swear. He'll say things like those cork sucking ice holes throughout the whole movie. So there's always that twisted language, and just right off the bat, you might be like, all right, that just sounds ridiculous. But just an incredibly hilarious movie. And speaking of Weird Al Yankovic having a song in this movie, the second honorable mention is a movie that I just watched the other day as of the time of this recording, and that is Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Daniel Radcliffe playing Weird Al Yankovic. It is a parody of music biopics about the king of parody music. And again, absolutely hilarious. It's 97% untrue. I've listened to the commentary, watched all the behind the scenes stuff, and Weird Al talks about the things like the little nuggets of truth that are within this movie. Like the first recording ever of My Bologna was done in a bathroom, a public bathroom. Evan Rachel Wood plays Madonna. Rainn Wilson is Dr. Demento. There are tons and tons of cameos. It is a wonderful parody of the biopic, the trajectory of Weird Al Yankovic's career. Again, 97% false. The only reason it's an honorable mention at this point is because I just watched it, and so it might be unduly influencing me. So I didn't want to put it on the list under false pretenses. Highly, highly recommended. But let's move on to something that is on the list. Is any of this making sense? The way I'm doing this? I don't know. This is... this might be the one. National Lampoon's Van Wilder. Starring Ryan Reynolds and Tara Reid. Tara Reid, I'm not a big fan, but she's in 2 of these movies that are on my list. So Van Wilder is about this guy, Van Wilder, who's been in college for 7 years, refuses to graduate. His father decides to cut him off, and so he's trying to, I believe, finally graduate. And I think it's a National Lampoon movie. It's definitely some problematic stuff in this movie. One very, very disgusting scene in this movie. But I think it's carried by Ryan Reynolds' charm. I happen to be a big fan of Ryan Reynolds, have been since he was in Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. I know he grates on some people. I like him. I think he's funny. I think he's charming. He seems like a very, very nice guy. And despite Van Wilder being sort of this party guy, the character is actually raises money for charities all the time. A very good guy. Kal Penn is in this, and I find it incredibly funny. Love watching this movie. All right, then we have something I'm not sure too many people have heard of. This is DEBS. And is this going to tell me what DEBS stands for? No, it's not. But basically, this is about a group of young ladies who are secret agents. And I'm going to read the back cover copy on this. Sultry crime boss Lucy Diamond is back in the States, and the DEBS, an elite team of paramilitary college co-ed super spies, are hot on her trail. But when their top agent, gorgeous Amy Bradshaw, mysteriously disappears after coming face to face with the attractive young villainess, the DEBS begin a full-scale search for Lucy's secret lair, never suspecting that Amy may not want to be rescued at all in this smart and sexy spy spoof. And yeah, it's incredibly hilarious. Lucy Diamond is played by Jordana Brewster, possibly best known for the Fast and the Furious movies. It's got Devon Aoki, who again possibly best known from the Sin City movies. Um, and it has Jimmy Simpson. I believe this is the first time I ever saw Jimmy Simpson. I'm an absolute fan of Jimmy Simpson, possibly best known for the first season of Westworld. Um, he's in a few episodes of the TV show Psych. He's a McPoyle. Oh, he might be best known as one of the McPoyles on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Simpson. It's very funny, and it's got a heart. It's kind of a love story. But Debs, check it out. All right. Let's go with this one. I just revealed the next thing on this pile that's sort of randomly put together or randomly stacked. I chose the movies on the pile, and I can see that there's going to be some more honorable mentions coming up. But this one is Office Space from Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, starring Ron Livingston, Stephen Root, Gary Cole, Jennifer Aniston. It's a classic. It's incredibly funny, although I do think it gets bogged down a little towards the end. But another movie that we're still quoting to this day, about an office worker. In case you don't know, in this tedious job, he's a cubicle monkey, but he gets hypnotized, and the hypnotist has told him to relax, da 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 da, the usual stuff, and then the hypnotist dies before he can snap Ron Livingston's character out of the hypnosis, and so now he's just this sort of lackadaisical, doesn't give a crap about anything, failing upward kind of character, and it's just hilarious. It's Office Space. All right, I'm going to bring up something on the phone now. This is a movie that had to make the list, but I do not currently own a copy of it, so hopefully you'll be able to see this from my phone. Bubble Boy, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, possibly the first movie I ever saw him in. A spoof-ish of the John Travolta 1970s movie The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a young man who was born with immunodeficiencies, and so he's has to live in a bubble. His parents make him a bubble room. He falls in love with the girl next door. When she runs off to get married at Niagara Falls, he makes himself a bubble that he's trying to get across country, get to Niagara Falls to profess his love. And again, incredibly hilarious, incredibly goofy, tons of cameos. Another movie that I'm still quoting to this day. Jake Gyllenhaal gives an amazing performance. And I think everybody in here gives a fantastic performance, except maybe Fabio. Yes, Fabio is in this for a moment. Bubble Boy is just my kind of hilarious movie. And it had to make the list. Which is why the list is officially 11. All right, next up. And we're going to get into a lot of honorable mentions because of this one movie. And that's Airplane. Airplane, the spoof of all spoof movies. Written for the screen and directed by Jim Abrams, David Zucker, Jerry Zucker. Starring Robert Hayes, Julie Haggerty, Lloyd Bridges, and the classic comedic turn by Holy moly, how could I not remember his name? I could picture him perfectly. He was a dramatic actor. He's in Day of the Animals. He's in all of these movies. What the hell is his name? I can't believe it. I can see Robert Stack back here. It'll come to me. Anyway, Airplane. So it's a spoof of airplane disaster movies that were big. Airport and Airport 70 whatever, and then Airport 70 whatever again, or 80 whatever. I remember all the airport movies. But it's that crazy, pun-filled, visual joke-filled, ridiculousness-filled movie that's just joke after joke after joke after joke. Another movie still quoting to this day. People all over still quoting it to this day. The whole, Shirley, you must be kidding. No, I'm completely serious, and don't call me Shirley. That kind of stuff. And so Robert Hayes is an ex-pilot who's got PTSD, essentially. He happens to be on this flight. The pilot and the co-pilot are both incapacitated. Robert Hayes has to try and land the plane. All sorts of craziness going on. I still quote, I'm going to give this little bit away in case there's anybody who hasn't seen it. Lloyd Bridges plays the guy on the ground trying to bring the plane down. And as things go wrong, as stuff happens, he says at one point, I may not have this exactly right, but he's like, looks like I picked the wrong day to stop drinking coffee. Pours himself some coffee, drinks it. And then a little later in the film, he's like, looks like I picked the wrong day to give up smoking. Lights himself a cigarette. Then looks like I picked the wrong day to stop drinking. Takes a slug of some booze. And then later, looks like I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. And he just shoves some glue up his nose and snorts it. Absolutely hilarious. And I still quote, something goes wrong, especially at work. Something doesn't go quite right. So it looks like I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. Leslie Nielsen. There you go. That's the guy whose name I couldn't think of. Leslie Nielsen. Classic. Everybody knows Leslie Nielsen in the Airplane movies. So Airplane, absolutely one of my favorite comedies. And so honorable mention has to go to Airplane 2, the sequel, as well as Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2. All three of those fantastic spoof movies. I think Airplane and Hot Shots are the two best. The sequels for both are fantastic. Not quite as good as the originals, but if you like puns, if you like visual humor, there's, again, in this, they say something about getting all the lights on the runway, and then a dump truck just dumps a bunch of like table lamps and stuff on the runway. It's that kind of humor. It's wild, it's crazy, and there's so many. It's rewatchable because chances are you're going to miss a lot of the jokes the first time you watch it. There's audio and visual jokes going on at the same time that aren't related to each other. Fantastic movie. All right. Oh, the other thing, another honorable mention because of I believe it's the Zuckers, but it could be Jim Abrams. Not sure. But another honorable mention, another one that might get me kicked off of or kicked out of any club that somebody was foolish enough to let me join. Basketball. Absolutely love the movie Basketball. And it stars Matt Parker, Trey Stone? Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I always get their names mixed up for some weird reason. And I always thought it was that they wrote it, they directed it, but it's actually one of, Basketball, Trey Parker, Matt Stone. I don't know why I get their names mixed up. It was the Zuckers, David Zucker, based on a game he used to play when he was a kid. So it's co-written and it's directed by David Zucker of Airplane fame. But it stars Trey Parker and Matt Stone. And it's basically about these two guys that make up this game that mixes basketball and baseball. And they keep making up crazy rules, and it becomes huge, and it becomes a national sport. And it's absolutely hilarious and problematic and disgusting, but a little disgusting in some points, but absolutely hilarious. So that's an honorable mention because of the connection with Zucker and Airplane. But that's going to lead into another honorable mention, which is Orgasmo, which is by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. And it's the story of a Seventh-day Adventist or a Jehovah's Witness or somebody, a door-to-door religious person who ends up becoming a porn star to pay for the location where his fiance wants to get married, and becomes a crime fighter, essentially. And again, incredibly funny. One of the ongoing jokes is anytime you're about to see a woman's naked breasts, some guy's naked ass fills the camera. So again, might not be your kind of humor, but I like Trey Parker and Matt Stone. And again, some problematic things in this movie, but overall, I think it's incredibly funny. That's Orgasmo. Another honorable mention. That might be the last one of those, but let's move on to Clue, the movie, starring, I need to look at this because I'm not going to remember everybody. Eileen Brennan, Tim Curry, Madeline Kahn, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, Martin Mull, Leslie Ann Warren. And, you know, it's a movie based on a very simple board game, and it is a masterpiece of comedy. Tim Curry is amazing. And if you were around when it came out in theaters during its initial release, there are 3 different endings. And depending on what theater you went to, that would dictate, for lack of a better way to put it, which ending you were going to see. So you, say opening weekend, you went to theater A, your friends went to theater B, you get to school on Monday, and you start arguing because, no, that's not how it ended. You fool! What are you thinking? Well, there were 3 different endings. We went to multiple theaters. I mean, it's a great way to sell extra tickets. We went to a few different theaters trying to catch. I think we only got 2 of the endings. But now, like on here, it has all the endings. When it's being solved, essentially he says, it's been a while since I've watched the video, but he says, like, it may have happened this way, and then they give the ending, or it may have happened this way, and they give the ending, but it really happened this way, and then that's the ending. But again, another movie we quote all the time. The performances are fantastic, and it's just an amazing movie. It was spoofed in the 100th episode of Psych. They got a bunch of the people to come back. They didn't get Tim Curry. He'd already played a different part on Psych earlier, but they did get some of the other people in, and it's just a masterpiece of a movie. Now, this one, some people might argue that it falls into the horror comedy category because there are some zombies in it, but they're only in a hallucination, so I don't think it falls into that category. But this is Reefer Madness, the movie musical. This stars Kristen Bell, Christian Campbell, Neve Campbell, brother and sister, Alan Cumming, Anna Gasteyer, John Kassir, voice of the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, Amy Spangler, Robert Torti, probably best known as the father of Zack and Cody from Sweet Life and Zack and Cody, Steven Weber. That's all the people starring in this movie. So this originally, first of all, I'm not a big fan of musicals. My stepfather, my stepbrother, my sister, huge fan of musicals. I'm not, but I do love this one and Evil Dead the musical. So, I don't know. but I'm not really, like, I don't care about Oklahoma or any of that other stuff. But Reefer Madness, the movie musical, for anyone who doesn't know, Reefer Madness was a propaganda film. It was actually two different propaganda films. It was like this little propaganda film, but then somebody got a hold of it and they added a bunch of crazy footage to it and released it as this anti-marijuana thing. And this hits the beats of that original propaganda film while uh, basically showing the absurdity of that original propaganda film. I'm going to say original propaganda film a lot. Apparently, the original propaganda film is on this disc. So it starts with a guy addressing parents to tell them about the dangers of marijuana, and then it becomes the story that he's telling them, and it's about Mary Lane and Jimmy Harper. They're young, high school, in love. Jimmy gets involved with this weed, that devil weed, and it leads to tragedy. Absolutely hilarious dialogue. Steven Weber is amazing in this as the drug dealer. He's doing that old 30s type of dialogue, the way he says his lines. You've been in more, what is it? You've been in more laps than a napkin. You're giving me more static than the radio. That kind of stuff. Anna Gasteyer, amazing singing voice. Wonderful performances from her, from everybody. Kristen Bell, fantastic. It's funny. I think the music is fantastic. I have the soundtrack, which actually has both the stage songs and the movie songs. Because originally this was a stage production in Los Angeles, I believe, and they eventually made it into a movie. Kristen Bell performed it on the stage. Robert Torti played a number of roles on the stage. I think Christian Campbell did it, but they brought in some other people, sort of filled out the cast. Absolutely hilarious movie, fantastic music, and I don't know if you can see that this case is brown and it smells like chocolate. Maybe it's just me, but possibly it's hard for me to choose between this and Evil Dead, the musical, for my favorite musical. They both have fantastic stories, hilarious, fantastic music, but this is the one I have on DVD, so there you go. Reefer Madness, the movie musical. I absolutely love it. I need to liquidate my throat. All right. Next up, we have Super Troopers from Broken Lizard. I was shocked by how incredibly funny I thought this movie was the first time I saw it. It's Broken Lizard is a troop of guys. I think they met in college, did sketch comedy, did stage shows, and this is their second movie. I think their first movie is Puddle Jumper. I've seen that. But this is about a bunch of state troopers that are possibly going to lose their jobs. They're trying to make this big drug bust to hopefully keep their station open. It's got Brian Cox, the original Hannibal Lecter, as their captain. And it's just crazy shenanigans. People who have seen this movie will understand what I'm saying there. They're just goofy characters getting into goofy situations, and again trying to have this big drug bust, but they're also just playing games. They'll just an example. They'll pull somebody over, and two of these troopers riding in the same patrol car. They'll pull somebody over, and one of them will bet the other one, you can't say meow 10 times when you pull this person over. And so, they'll be like, you know why I pulled you over, meow? And so they're getting into those kinds of shenanigans with people they're pulling over, dealing with the public, but they like their job. They want to keep their station open, so they got to get serious and make this drug bust. But the local state or the local police think they're idiots, want them stopped. I don't know. I think it's hilarious. I think it's one of those movies you either enjoy the humor or think it's incredibly stupid and it's one of those dumb movies and you don't understand why people like it. And I get that. It's all subjective, but I find it incredibly funny. And honorable mention, Beer Fest is funny. Why can I never... They did a slasher movie, comedy, and I can never... Club Dread. Club Dread. I really like Club Dread a lot. Even Slammin' Salmon I found enjoyable. And Super Troopers 2 wasn't bad. I think the Broken Lizard guys are pretty funny. They don't always hit it out. I think this is a home run. They don't always hit it out of the park, but Super Troopers, good stuff. All right, we're down to the last two. And I put these in this order for a reason that only makes sense to me. So, we have Josie and the Pussycats, starring Rachel Lee Cook, Tara Reid, and Rosario Dawson, and Alan Cumming. He was in Reefer Madness, the movie musical. Tara Reid was in Van Wilder. Parker Posey, bunch of other people. And this movie is about... Well, it's about Josie and the Pussycats, but what it's really about is consumerism. There's this record company that is using hit records to manipulate the minds of the public. The government, giant corporations are having this record company put subliminal messages into music to affect people, and the hottest band in the world, du jour, something happens to them, they need to scramble, find a new hot band. Alan Cumming finds Josie and the Pussycats. And again, I think this movie, absolutely hilarious. Parker Posey and Alan Cumming both knock it out of the park. And I have the soundtrack to this movie. It's really great pop rock music. And the vocals, the singing voice of Josie and the Pussycats, is the lead singer from the band Letters to Cleo. Fantastic vocals, in my opinion. So, it's an odd choice. I have very eclectic taste in music, and I love the music that's in here. There's a couple songs by du jour, who are basically your generic boy band. Absolutely hilarious songs. And they sound like... I don't know who does the singing for the du jour songs. You'll probably recognize all the faces in the band, though. But it sounds like it could be NSYNC or Boyz II Men or 98 Degrees. Is that what they're called? I don't know. I can't remember all of them. New Kids on the Block, that kind of stuff. So Josie and the Pussycats, I absolutely love this movie. And then the reason I put the final movie here after Josie and the Pussycats is because, as I said, the lead singer, it's Kate something, I believe, from Letters to Cleo, is in Josie and the Pussycats. And the whole reason I watched this next movie is because I was talking about Josie and the Pussycats with my sister, mentioned Letters to Cleo, and they said, oh, they are in this movie, 10 Things I Hate About You. So with no expectations whatsoever, I decided to watch this simply to see Kate, I believe, from Letters to Cleo, in this movie, doing a song that I love, Cruel to Be Kind. And I love this movie. It is essentially a modern day version of Taming of the Shrew, starring Julia Stiles, Heath Ledger, and so many other wonderful people. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt is this high school kid who's got a crush on this girl, but her father won't let her date until her older sister, played by Julia Stiles, dates. And Julia Stiles has no interest in dating, and so Joseph Gordon-Levitt hires Heath Ledger to essentially seduce into dating the Julia Stiles character. It is incredibly funny. There are some lines in the movie that are directly lifted from the Shakespeare. But they don't do that Romeo and Juliet thing, the Leonardo DiCaprio one, where it's a modern day version of the movie, but with the literal dialogue from the play. This is a modern movie with modern dialogue, just some lines from Shakespeare sprinkled in. I'll be honest, there's a scene in this movie that always brings a tear to my eye. I get all choked up when I'm watching it. But mostly, I'm laughing my ass off. Heath Ledger is fantastic in this. Julia Stiles is great. There's an actor, Larry Miller. He's a comedian, plays the father of Julia Stiles and the other young lady. He's fantastic. He usually plays, at least in my experience, like an acerbic kind of character. He plays a murder suspect in a number of episodes of Law and Order. But he's very heartfelt in this film. And David, as I said, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, David Krumholtz is in this, and I can't remember everybody, but I absolutely love this movie, and I find it, except for that little part that makes me tear up, absolutely hilarious. Some funny, funny stuff in this film, and it's got Kate from Letters to Cleo singing a couple of great songs, including Cruel to Be Kind, which is a song I love. So there you go. That is 11 plus of my favorite comedy films. As I said, this does not include horror comedy. That's going to be a category all on its own. And I had trouble. I tried to keep it to things that I had physical copies of, mainly because those are the easiest things for me to remember. I'm sure there's plenty of things, comedies I don't have, so they're not right in front of me, and so I didn't think of them. Bubble Boy, though, absolutely one of my favorites. I was not going to forget that. I just don't have a copy of it at the moment. So, of course, my question is, what are your favorite comedies? What style of comedy do you like? Do you not like comedy? Believe it or not, there are people out in the world that don't like comedy movies. I could have had, like, going through it, I enjoy Seth MacFarlane, so I like Ted and Ted 2, and I even like A Million Ways to Die in the West. I can look and I can see there's comedies everywhere. My physical media collection, mostly horror. Number 2 is comedy. Absolutely. And sometimes they go very well together. But what are your favorites? Are you a fan of comedy, first of all? And if you are, what are your favorites? What type of comedy do you like? You may have noticed, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you've fallen asleep already. There's no, I don't know if mean comedy is the right way to put it. Like, there's no Jackass movies on here. Not a fan of that style of comedy. I love Johnny Knoxville. I think he's a very interesting actor. I've seen him in movies acting, and I like him. And he seems like a genuine person. I just have no interest in seeing people act like, well, jackasses. And even though, I mean, in the show, not all of it was consensual, for lack of a better way to put it. But within the core group, they know what they're getting into. But sometimes they're doing things that, to people who don't know what's going on, I suppose. I assume if they're in the movie or the show, they've signed a release eventually. But anyway, that's all neither here nor there. That sort of thing doesn't interest me. I'm not a big fan of the Three Stooges. I do like the Marx Brothers, but and see, I would say dumb comedies, but a lot of these comedies people would consider pretty dumb. But I don't think they are. I think there's an intelligence to most of these. Maybe not Van Wilder, but a lot of the others. There's an underlying intelligence. Maybe it's just poorly made comedies. You don't see any Adam Sandler on here, and I don't hate Adam Sandler. I think Big Daddy's fine. I like Happy Gilmore. Um, I could have mentioned things like uh, stepping away from Adam Sandler, but things like I like Talladega Nights. I like Anchorman. I like Dewey Cox. What is that? Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. I like those movies, but this could have been a 50 movie list. I already went well above and beyond the 11 that is going to be in this title. But yeah, there's certain types of comedies that I don't like. And so, what about you? Let me know just your thoughts on comedy movies. What are your favorites? What don't you like? Why don't you like them? Why do you like the ones that you do? All of that. Let's just talk about it in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are always open for spoilers. But post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith5757. That's Eric with a K. ERIKSMITH 5757. And on Blue Sky, I am @EL Smith. That's all I have for you this time. So until next time, watch more comedies.